Welcome back to the deep dive. All right, so today we are looking at a stack of notes that honestly just flips the script on how you might see, well, everything right now. The news, politics, just the whole vibe of the country.
It really does.
We're digging into Mapping America's Energy by Dorothy W. Parker, and the hook is, it's wild. She says to imagine the United States not as a country, but as a living field body, a giant energy grid.
And that one shift changes everything. Parker uses what she calls a GIG report framework, where geography isn't just a backdrop, it's active.
It's the hardware.
Exactly. It's the hardware. It records history. It amplifies tension.
Yeah.
It basically acts like a giant circuit board.
Okay, let's unpack that circuit board visual. She describes the U.S. with a few key parts. First, there's the spine.
Right, the 13 colony sequence. Think of it like the ancestral skeleton of the country. It's heavy with all the origin codes and first imprints.
And then coming off of that is the nervous system.
Yeah, which runs on what she calls directional tones, north, south, east, and west, each with its own frequency.
So the mission for this deep dive is to use this map to understand the tension we're all feeling. Parker argues what looks like political chaos is actually a structural metamorphosis.
The grid is shifting. It's moving away from what she calls ancestral memory governance.
Doing things the way they've always been done.
Right, and it's moving toward embodied signal governance, which is, well, it's a bit of a mouthful.
So what does that mean in plain English?
She calls it a sorting frequency. The land itself is stripping away excess noise and borrowed energy. It's filtering out anything that doesn't have its own internal coherence.
So if the land is trying to filter out noise, it needs tools to do that. It needs a stress test.
And this is where her take on politics gets really interesting. She suggests that politics is basically just a surface amplifier.
A decoy layer.
A decoy layer, yeah. We get fixated on the political drama, but the real work, the sorting, is happening on a much deeper level.
Which brings us to her analysis of certain figures. And, we should be clear, this is impartially reporting her energetic classifications, not a political take.
Correct. She sees them as functions. For example, she classifies Donald Trump not as a cause, but as a compression amplifier.
Meaning he just turns up the volume on what's already there.
He creates pressure. He intensifies the authority distortion that was already broken in the system. Then you have a group like ICE.
And what's their function?
She calls that a containment frequency. It's there to test boundaries and trigger survival memory in the grid.
So it's not about policy, it's about physics.
It's pure physics. Together, they act as a stress test. They force the system to show us where the pipes are broken. They aren't the problem itself, they're the pressure gauge.
Speaking of things breaking, let's talk about the 42%. Parker calls this the fall of America, but she doesn't mean an invasion.
No, not at all. It's a withdrawal of agreement. She points to data showing that 42% of Americans have, in one way or another, deconstructed their faith.
Wait, okay, connect that for me. Why does people leaving church cause the country's energy grid to break?
Because for centuries, faith wasn't just a religion here. It was the load-bearing frequency. It was the operating system everyone kind of agreed to run on.
So when 42% of people uninstall that operating system...
The computer crashes.
Yeah.
The whole infrastructure that held the moral hierarchy together, it's gone. And the house starts to wobble.
And that wobble looks different depending on where you are on the map.
Very different.
So let's run through them. If you're in the east, that old colonial spine...
Parker says you're feeling institutional exhaustion, just deep systemic fatigue. That region has been carrying the origin story for so long.
Okay, then you go south.
That's emotional volatility and bond rupture. The identity there was so tied to that old operating system, so when it crashes, it feels like an existential threat.
And the north.
That she calls moral restructuring. They're trying to figure out how to build a new code, how to have authority without the faith that used to underpin everything.
Which leaves the west.
And that's signal clarity. The grid out there is younger, it's shedding the past, it demands embodiment over explanation. It's less about what you believe and more about who you are.
So what does this all mean for us now? Parker has this amazing analogy of a caterpillar in a cocoon. She says we're in an enzymatic phase.
And that's the key takeaway. It looks like total destruction from the inside, but it's actually destabilization of form without loss of essence.
A metamorphosis. It definitely feels messy.
It is messy. But this whole thing raises a final, really important question for you to think about. Parker suggests we're shifting from external authority to internal coherence.
From shared belief to something else.
Exactly. So if the grid no longer sustains structures built on that shared belief, what happens to all the institutions, government, education, finance, that rely on that belief to even exist?
The land is no longer asking who should lead, it's asking who can hold signal without distortion. That is definitely something to chew on. Thanks for diving in with us.